Hey guys, what's going on? Once again, Optimus Tom is here on a lovely Wednesday evening for In the Zone, my little Learn to League of Legends show where you guys can learn to be a better summoner. Anyway guys, what's going on? It was a little rainy here before, but other than that, I'm doing pretty good. Had an awesome MLG prize fight last night, cast by myself in Monte Cristo. If you guys didn't get a chance to check out Team Legion and TSM, you should go back and watch it now, because it was awesome. Other than that, we had IPL Face-Off over the weekend, which is also fantastic as well. You guys should definitely go check out those VODs, because I hate giving spoilers, because half the people say, Tom, why don't you just give us the results? The other half go, oh my god, Optimus Tom, give me the results, I hate his guts. So I'm going to be a little spoiler-friendly this time. You never know, next week I might just switch it up and decide to give you all the spoilers on absolutely everything that's happened to Gamescom right now. But anyway, aside from that, a little bit of tidbit of news. If you haven't already read the title of the show, let me going back. Past couple of weeks we've been bringing down pro play and tournament level play and looking at what the pros do and giving you guys little tips and tidbits to see how you guys can improve your game that way as well. But I've actually been getting a lot of questions and a lot of comments and everything funneling in from players who were about to hit level 30 or just hit level 30 and trying to figure out pretty much what to do. Actually, a couple of my friends doing the same exact thing. I had my friend Dejan actually messaging me the other day saying what you could do to help out with ability power mid champions, and if I could give him like a tier list and who you should be on the lookout for. My friend Sam actually was asking me a couple of questions about how she can improve her game in specific roles, moving from the mid lane and taking a look at champions in the top lane and the bottom lane. And it got me pretty much thinking about, with all the rest of you guys submitting questions as well, through the Facebook on facebook.com/OptimusTomTV, or on the GG Chronicle Facebook as well at facebook.com/GG Chronicle. You guys have been messaging myself on Twitter, especially at Optimus Tom. You can also feel free to message GG Chronicle at GG Chronicle as well, and you guys will be able to get all your questions and comments, everything, just link right back to me for In the Zone. But anyway, you guys have been asking me a lot of really good questions about basically how am I going to improve my game overall is what I've really been finding out. There's actually a thread that was on Reddit the other night too, complaining about how Riot is matching me up against players that are way more experienced than I am. I just hit level 30, I have 147 wins. I'm being matched up against guys with 1,000 wins and 750 wins, and what can I do? You know, and people were just like, well, if you're going to be playing against these people, you're only going to improve your game. And then a couple people in the thread are like, oh, I'm in the same boat as you, I don't know what to do, I can't improve my game, etc., etc. So in light of all this, I put on my best iNoobish impression. It's not a hoodie, it's a shirt, but do my best. But I'm going to help you guys out and basically give you the ins and outs of what is going to help you when you're about to hit level 30 or pretty much just about to hit level 30. I'm going to try to do it in the most cheap way as possible so you guys don't have to purchase RP. Although I'm also going to offer a couple alternatives where if you guys do have RP and don't mind spending money on the game, I'll give you some champions or things that you can buy just in case you guys didn't mind going out and buying like a $10 or $25 RP card and throwing a bone Riot's way. But anyway, guys, without further ado, what we're going to be doing is just basically help. I'm about level 30 or I just hit level 30, and what can I do to improve guide? Well, one of the first things you can do is you guys can go in and you can buy IP boosts. Now, IP boosts are something that a lot of pros advocate, but pros obviously have a lot more time on their hands than we do. So I've broken down a little bit of mathematics for you, ladies and gentlemen, so I could talk to you a little more in-depth about what you can do with IP boosts. Experience boosts, first off, don't bother with these things. They're not really going to help you out that much. Experience boosts will help you hit level 30 quicker, but what you want to be doing before you hit level 30 is saving up our IP, basically, to buy champions that interest you, or buy the champions we'll talk about a little bit later in this show. IP boosts when you're about to hit level 30 are going to be solely so you can get yourself a rune page to work with. These would even be a little bit better as you're about to hit level 20 and such, because tier 3 runes are pretty much the only runes that are going to make a difference when you play the game. Pre-level 20, I had absolutely no runes on my account, and I've been playing since the beta. My Smurf account, which is about level 17 right now, I think I maybe have 1 or 2 runes because I got free RP and decided to play around with magic penetration and statistics on that for a little bit. So it's a little bit different from my Smurf account, but for the most part, runes are not important until you hit level 20, because then you get access to tier 3 runes, which is where all the extra damage and health is really going to come into this. So IP boost, you have a bunch of different ones to choose from. You could choose a 14-day IP boost, you could choose a 10-win IP boost, a 3-day, a 4-win, or a 1-day. Now, breaking down the amount of win IP boosts, these are normally the ones you're going to want to go for. a 4-win IP boost if you so decide to buy some RP. 290 RP for 4 wins means that it's about 72.5 RP per win. 10 wins is 76 RP for win. And now if you're going to basically be like, well, I went out and bought a $10 RP card, what am I going to do? Well, you can pretty much just buy 2 10-win IP boosts right off the bat and have 20 wins right there. This is going to accelerate you to a generous amount of IP and most likely pay for 2 contestants or a full set of red, yellow, or blue runes, which is very, very fantastic. So what you're going to really want to do is keep an eye out for these win RP boosts. Pros will advocate the day RP boosts because they play non-stop. I can recommend the 1-day IP boost because you might be able to get 2 10 wins and a 1 win out of a $10 IP card. I'm not 100% sure. I kind of forget how much RP is in one of those things. I've been using $25 ones because, well, I buy all the new champions to do the champion selects for you, ladies and gentlemen. So I actually don't know the mathematics behind it. But if you buy a 1-day RP boost, you basically have to play 4 wins in order to make it amount the same as a 4-win IP boost. If you were to win any more than that, then you're going to gain infinite value. Basically, it's the same exact thing right here. This is 72.5 RP per win. But because you're spending less on it, when you wind up going into the 10-win range, you've already basically doubled your output. So if you come home from school one day and you have like a full day to devote, like come home, like if you have like a weekend, you come off of work, maybe you have a vacation or a sick day or you're on summer vacation, go out and buy a 1-day RP boost if you're going to sit around and play for basically, well, let's think about this. Average League of Legends game, probably a half hour to 40 minutes. So if you want to do four wins right off the bat, it's going to cost you about 2 hours, if not more. Probably more along the lines of 2.5, 3. If you have a day to spend basically 4, 5, 6, 7 hours on League of Legends alone, and you think you're going to do very well and win, by all means, go out and buy a 1-day RP boost because that's only going to pay off in dividends for you when you wind up making enough to buy a full set of quintessences because you had to stay home sick from school or work one day, which is fantastic. So go out and buy the 1 day if you only have basically a 1 day entirely to devote to the IP boost. Other than that, it doesn't really pay off as much if you were to just get the win IP boost, which will carry over to multiple days. Doesn't really expire. I think I still have a day or 2 left of an IP boost on one of my Smurf accounts, which is kind of hilarious because I don't remember when I bought it, but it'll let you carry over, and it means you could take it slow and steady at your own pace. That means if you can only have time to play 1 or 2 games when you come home from a long day of work or school, and you have a lot of homework to catch up on or something, or a girlfriend or a boyfriend, heaven forbid, they want you to spend time with them, you could carry one of those win boosts over for a couple days, and then you'll have to, you don't have to worry about that. I wouldn't know anything about those things though, so. But IP boosts, like I said, they do cost RP, but they are going to pay off very, very well if you do decide to just invest maybe $10 in the game. Other than that, what you're going to do, as I mentioned, these IP boosts that you're buying, you're going to use them to flesh out your rune pages. Now, runes are something that you're not going to worry about till level 20. I've already talked about this. Once you hit tier 3, that's all you're going to worry about. Marks, glyphs, seals, and quintessences. You don't have to worry about tier 2. You don't have to worry about the rune combiner. Those things are just really interesting things that you can do, and they generate random runes and stuff like that. But as you can see, quintessences usually cost a buttload, especially if you're going to be going for something good, like health, or if you're going to be going for something along the lines of where's my flat AD, because those are ones are probably going to be pointing out a little bit. These actually aren't that expensive, so these make them pretty good. Marks, glyphs, and seals are a little less expensive because it all depends on what you're going to be doing. However, you're going to be buying 9 of these as opposed to 3 of those quintessences. So why do you want to buy these runes as the first thing you do with your boosted RP? It's going to be because you can use these for different rune page setups. Now, as you can see right here, I have way too many rune pages, but this is because I love playing around with champion-specific things. And if we take a look at my runes, well, I own a lot of different runes. Look at all those seals. Look at all these glyphs. I pretend I'm a pro player sometimes. Look at all these quintessences. So that's a lot of IP in runes that has been spent over, however long the past 2.5 years I've been playing this game. So that is why I have so many runes. However, when you're on regular, just regular and starting out, and you're basically just hit level 30, you only really need 2 or 3 rune pages. Now this is pretty cool because League of Legends usually gives you a couple of rune pages to start out with. You don't necessarily need 18. Heck, I haven't even used some of these yet. My Ninja Pikachu page. Also, very important tip, name your rune pages something really interesting so that when people try to scout you out in matches and stuff, they think that you're crazy. It's also very, very hilarious when you tune into a game with Atlanta from Team Dynamic on there, and all his rune pages basically say, I hate Urgot, fuck Urgot, this champ gay, stuff like that. It's really funny. But anyway, when you first get into a game of League of Legends, you don't really need all these different rune pages. Actually, what you need is primarily one for attack damage, and a second one for ability power if you're going to be playing around with that. The third one you can build to be a little bit tankier, but this is also going to cost a little bit more IP to buy a little bit more runes. Now the interesting thing is, by building these 3 generic rune pages, they're going to work out very well for a slew of different champions and a slew of different roles. We can see right here, I have my basic ranged attack damage page. This is going to be using Greater Mark of Strength. These are flat attack damage marks. This will be granting me a decent amount of attack damage. I do believe it's, let's see, take these quintessences off, 8.5. So we'll be having 8.5 damage alone from that. We can see by adding the quintessences back in, it shoots up to 15. So having attack damage on your quintessences and attack damage on your marks will get you a general amount of attack physical damage. This is going to be great for last hitting, something you're going to have to work on, especially if you are a newer player to League of Legends. Having flat attack damage means that when you start the game, instead of your character having 40, 50, 60 damage, you'll be having 75, 80, upwards of that amount of damage, so last hitting minions doesn't take as much effort. By building flat attack damage, you'll be able to last hit a minion with, 90 health, rather than having to wait for the minions or someone else to push it down into the 50s or 40s range, which then makes it very, very difficult because you can not attack it in time and a minion can take it out of the way. Now, the one thing that's a problem with the physical attack damage is you might attack it and not necessarily get it all the way down and kill it, and then a minion will come around and swipe it away. This is also something you'll have to work on that we'll talk about a little bit later, how you can practice last hitting while you're practicing your champion roles. Aside from your marks and quintessences being just generic physical damage, buying generic armor runes is going to help you out if you're playing in the bottom or top lane. By building just flat armor runes rather than going for something like scaling armor per level or health per level, armor per level up here, health per level down here. Rather than going for something like that, this will just give you an immediate advantage. By creating an immediate advantage in your lane, you're going to be relatively safe, and the enemy's going to have to expend jungle resources to come up and gank you, or they're not going to be able to trade as effectively with you. So building generic armor is going to be beneficial to you. By doing it on your seals, you gain more armor that way. The glyphs over here, only 0.7 armor per one. But on these seals here, it's 1.41. So that is going to be more beneficial to you. Same thing, different setting on the glyphs here. Magic resistance is going to be more effective on glyphs than magic resistance on the seals, which I don't even think I have because they're not really worth it. So we already saw that, seals are a little bit more potent for physical armor, and glyphs are a little more potent for magic resistance. By building flat armor and magic resistance, you will be starting the game with 13 extra armor and 12 extra magic resistance. If you are a physical attack damage melee champion, your armor and magic resistance scales naturally into the later stages of the game. If you are a ranged attack damage character, your magic resistance stays at a natural 30. So by putting that plus 12 in there, you will have 42 magic resistance on top of your health, which, as we mentioned earlier in the zone, creates an effective HP bubble. Or basically, what happens is if you have 400 HP on your ranged carry, which is very low, I know, it's just an example, but you have 42 magic resistance, you'll take 42% of that 400 and add it to your HP, so it winds up making the fact that the spells have to deal that much extra damage to kill you, because that's how magic resistance works in League of Legends. Like I said, I'm not going to get too far into that one, because we dissected that in our previous In The Zone already, but this is why you will be running flat magic resistance over scaling magic resistance, especially if you're playing in the bottom lane. Thing of it is, even in top lane is it's just this menagerie of you can have an attack damage or an ability power champion in that top lane. Bottom lane, you're going to have an attack damage carry, but you're also going to have a support character, and those support characters with spells, especially someone like Sona, are going to be poking and prodding away with you at you with their abilities. This is going to be dealing magic damage. By building flat magic resistance, you are more resilient in the early stages of the game when you are weaker and don't have a team or a very nicely fed and itemed up support character to really help you out. By building scaling, you have a weaker early game but a more powerful end game. So if you feel like your weak spot is the beginning stages of the game, then by all means, keep these flat magic resistance. If you feel like later on you're really struggling, you can go for these magic resist per levels. They give you 0.15 per level, so 2.7 at level 18. Going back, that's almost double what you're going to be getting from the flat start, but you start with 12. By going all the way over here, where it's up top, this is 24, so it literally doubles by the time you hit level 18. However, at level 1, you're going to have 9 times of 0.15, so you're basically going to have like 1 and then a little bit extra magic resistance to start out with. So that's 42 versus 31.5 tops, which is a lot when you're talking about low-level champions. So you're going to have to decide, okay, well, is my early game the weak spot? Then I'm going to go for flat. Is my later game the weak spot? Then I'm going to go for scaling. As you can tell, my up top room page is used for solo top champions. My ranged AD page is used for my ranged carry champions. Look at this. 15 physical, 13 armor, 12 magic resistance. The only thing different is the scaling magic resistance because my up top champions are melee range and will scale with additional magic resistance per level naturally. That means that tankier champions tend to be in the top lane than in the bottom lane. You can use this rune page here for ranged AD. I've used it plenty of times for my solo top characters. But if I'm playing someone maybe like a Darius or someone a little more vulnerable to AP range poke, like from a Rumble or something, or a Vladimir, then I'm going to run with magic resist per level so I can scale basically to the point where they hit level 6 and I could take them out a little bit easier. That's what I'm going to be doing for top lane or bottom lane for my physical attack damage champions. Now, if you're going to be playing as a middle character, you can do a couple different things. You can go, where is it? You can do something, oh, I don't think I have it here, so I'm going to make it for you guys. You can do something like this. Magic penetration is going to be beneficial over ability power for you. This 8.5 magic penetration will later on go with your masteries to really shred through that early magic resistance that we already talked about building on specific champions. Magic penetration is extremely important because it lets your spells negate some of that effective HP we touched upon before. That's going to let, obviously, magic penetration will penetrate magic resistance. So by building a little bit of that in the beginning, it will negate a lot of what people are trying to help out themselves with in the early stages of the game. Now moving on for your seals and your quintessences, and your glyphs as well, I'm sorry, but you're going to want to be building something generic so you can play many different ability power champions in that middle lane. So you can just go flat ability power, and, where is it? Flat ability power. And then if you really want to, you can go flat ability power. Look at this. You start the game with 31 ability power and 8.5 magic resistance. This is so generic. This is basically what you would build if you are just starting out for ability power. And this is very effective because you deal so much damage. However, you are extremely vulnerable. So one thing that I can recommend you do, because you can use these on other champions as well, is buy move speed quintessences for your ability power page. You lose out on a little straight ability power, but by running faster and making yourself more mobile, you are more likely to dodge people who use skill shots. You're more likely to survive in a team fight. Move speed quintessences are very useful for top laners or jungle champions as well. However, if you are going to buy the flat AP because you just want to try to deal as much damage as possible and perhaps still practice your last hitting, you can greatly improve how you're going to survive in the game by scaling your AP instead. Where is it? No, I did the wrong one. We want to scale AP on our glyphs, not on our seals. By running glyphs with scaling ability power, you will be hitting harder as you go into the later stages of the game, but not hitting as hard right out of the get-go. This will be giving you 20 ability power at level 1 with an additional 28 by the time you hit level 18. This means at level 18, you naturally have 48 ability power from your runes and masteries. This would just be something if I'm just going to go out and practice ability power champions and try to deal as much damage as possible. What I would love to suggest to you guys is, since you're going to be using them for your range AD or your up top page anyway, either running magic resistance per level or flat magic resistance on your glyphs. This is going to give you a very rounded out page. By building magic resistance on your ability power carry, not only are you going to be able to use these for multiple rune pages, but you are building resistance against your enemy. Ability power champions, 90% of the time, are going to be what you see in the mid lane. By building magic resistance against this, you're going to counteract their magic penetration, and you're going to counteract any early ability power they have on you. So you can go for flat magic resistance or scaling magic resistance. Either one is going to work out. Obviously, flat magic resistance will be better for the early game, and scaling magic resistance will be better for the later stages of the game, much like you were running on your other rune page. So this is fantastic, because as we get back into looking at our runes, alright, let's just go with flat magic resistance, because this is what I'm going to suggest. Always go flat when you're first starting out, because most of the time your weaker part is the early game, and they're not terrible in the late stages of the game either. They're just not as effective as the scaling ones. So if we were to just have generic AP, what we do here is, okay, well, we have a page with magic penetration, ability power, and magic resistance. Well, this is great, because now on 3 pages, we have magic resistance already. We don't have to worry about buying any other glyphs, because, well, we don't have to. Where'd my page go? There we go. The client wasn't updating for some reason with my name. But, this is great, because now we don't have to worry about spending extra IP on glyphs, and instead of buying 2 sets of glyphs, we can buy a set of extra quintessences, we can buy a set of ability power seals, or save for our magic penetration marks. Now, something else that you can do, in case you're not too worried about having all that extra ability power right out of the get-go, is you can buy health quintessences. Or if it's Halloween time, health quintessences, because these are very, very cheap, and they are only slightly worse than the tier 3 quintessences. This is great, because now you can have a little extra health combined with your magic resistance. You'll have more effective HP. You can also transition these health quintessences into your range AD page, or more specifically, your up top rune page. If you were to check out this page I have called This Top OP, this is a page that Dyrus was running a lot on his Riven, and when he was practicing that in the top lane for more survivability in trades. You still have all the attack damage in your marks, all the armor in your seals, and all the magic resist in your glyphs, but you're running 2 health quintessences, so you come out ahead with 52 extra HP. That's basically a whole nother auto attack to have to spend to try to kill you, while you still have the extra quintessence for more damage, so you're able to still be super effective in trades. These are just things that you guys can play around with when you get a little bit more IP and you start playing around a little bit more. And then, of course, you can get really, really tricky, and you can build an Akali rune page with health per level, physical damage, magic penetration, and ability power. Or you can build something more along the lines of extra ability power, mana regeneration, and magic penetration. Or what you can also do is build something that's just straight magic resistance, health, and magic penetration to really screw over your opponents. But these things are going to be what you get when you start scaling into the game a little bit more, probably when you start getting more around 300, 400 wins, so you can build pages to go against specific matchups. When you're playing draft mode, having multiple rune pages is a lot more effective, because you can counter pick and counteract enemy champions. But just going straight in the blind pick, or even in the draft pick when you don't have that many champions, your 2 or 3 rune pages, 1 for range carry, 1 for your AP character, and then maybe 1 to have a little bit of scaling magic resistance for your top character, is going to be more effective for you. Now, this is going to be fantastic, because you can tie everything else in with generic mastery pages, which you can have up to 10 of, and these are absolutely free. So you can do something like my I Bring the Deeps page. This is a generic AD carry. I build into Summoner's Wrath because I'm probably going to take Ignite. Extra physical damage, extra attack speed and armor penetration, extra damage and critical strike, Lifesteal, more armor penetration, and increasing my damage when they're lower means that I'm going to be dealing as much physical damage as possible. However, on the same side, I'm going to be building into utility tree so I can have my flash to escape up a little bit quicker. Mana regeneration and extra mana per level and mana regeneration are going to help me spam spells if I'm, say, playing Ashe or Graves or maybe even Tristana or maybe even a Corki. Swiftness is going to slightly increase my movement speed, but I'm going to go into Runic Affinity right here so that later on in the game when they're donating me red buffs, I have it for a little bit longer so I can be more effective in team fights. This is going to be great for range carries. You can also, say, do something more along the lines of a defensive page. Go into all the same masteries you want to have your attack damage maxed out, but then in the defensive tree, build a little bit more against the enemy team. Straight armor because you're going to be in a bottom lane with an attack damage champion. Extra point in magic resistance just to survive that poke a little bit more. Health per level is something you might not be getting from your runes right away because you don't have enough IP. So by doing this, you don't have to get those health quintessences. You're going to start out with 36 HP extra, which is a little bit more than a single health quintessence, which is fantastic, especially if you're going to be more worried about the enemy trying to go in and attack you. Another thing I can suggest is when you have rune pages, or sorry, mastery pages, keep a last slot open as your utility slot. This means that I'm not going to worry about clearing this page out and not remembering what was on it because it's not as important as the other pages that I have saved already. You even see right here, for my solo top page, I have the same kind of thing set up as I do for a defensive AD bottom page. So you can use these two for multiple circumstances. You even have them next to each other as 1 and 2, so you just know this one is a little more conservative, this one's a little more aggressive, and then this one would be a little more conservative if I'm worried about taking too much damage. Also, you can have AP mid pages. Summoner's Wrath for the Ignite spell. Mental Force for a little extra ability power, but mostly cooldown reduction and magic penetration. Extra damage here to help with last hitting. Blast and Archmage, so of course increase your ability power, and then it's never a bad idea to take Executioner because you're just increasing your overall damage dealt. Then you can see on the other side for utility, it's the same masteries we took for our AD carry. You can change it up a little bit to be defensive in the mid lane as well by taking the defensive points in magic resistance because you're an AP mid magic user against another AP mid magic user, and then building into the extra HP to create, once again, that shield of effective HP to generate more defenses. You can also then do something more along the lines of specific rune pages for, say, a Galio, where I'm building magic penetration and a little extra damage, but mostly defensive spells because that's what he does best. I could build specifically a Soraka page for when I go into a support character, making sure I go for wealth for extra gold to get wards, and then moving into, say, awareness and sage to keep that experience up because I'm not going to be killing as much, or a generic support page where I'm making sure I stay alive while helping out my mana and my experience to make sure my AD character is going to be as useful in that bot lane. We can also then, say, go on to something like a Riven rune page, or a Rise rune page, which is a little more dedicated toward the character, or then you could do something more along the lines of like, well, I'm going to do something like this. I completely forget what it is. I believe it goes like this. No, that's way too many things. I don't remember quite offhand, but you basically go into something like this. And I'm supposed to have one less point in there. You basically go into something like this, and it winds up being something similar to an Akali page, where it looks like all over, and it basically looks like your rune page for Akali, where it's basically all over. But those, like I said, are a little bit more advanced when you get into more ability, more IP to go with your runes, and you get to play around a little bit more at your masteries. And like I said, the best thing about mastery pages are they're absolutely free. You don't have to buy them like extra rune pages, so you can continue to just sit around and play around with new ideas. Now that you have rune pages and masteries in mind, though, you're going to want to figure out what champions are best going to suit you for different roles and what roles you want to practice. And as I mentioned earlier, my friend Sam brought this up to me because she had been playing AP mid for a while, and basically she started the wrong way. She started by playing Akali a lot without a dedicated Akali page, but then moved on to champions like Ahri and wanted to transition to other lanes, playing Riven and playing other characters like Caitlyn in the bottom lane as well. So what I did for you guys was, first off, I'm going to tell you what lanes are easiest to learn and practice with and why, and then I'm going to teach you a couple characters that you can pick out to kind of sniff them out, like my friend Dejan actually brought up, who would want to play in the mid lane and who was more effective against what champions and what ones are on the rise, etc., etc. So I'll tell you guys a little bit of insight into what I feel like the champions that you should be learning are, and then I'll give you examples of more expensive champions and harder to use champions that you guys can pick up later on after you feel comfortable in that role. So first off, what I'm going to say is when you start out in the bottom lane. You're not going to start out as a support character though. Support characters by nature are the most overpowered champions in the game. Let it sink in for a second. Support characters, I've said this multiple times, you don't have to build items on them to be effective. They don't have to scale with ability power or attack damage for their spells to still be effective. They have hard crowd control on them, so they're going to be useful in team fights no matter what. Bit by bit, pound for pound, support characters are the most overpowered in the game. But you don't want to start out playing that because you don't have a rune page that's going to settle in on them as easily as an AD or an AP, or a top character. So what I'm going to suggest is you start in the bottom lane as a ranged AD. You move into the middle lane as an ability power caster, move on to the top lane as an AD-centric character, and then play around with junglers, support characters, and AP tops. Got a little sniffle. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. But when you're looking at the cast of 100 and something champions that League of Legends has to offer, hey, look, Rengar, you're not available yet. Get out of my champion feed. Anyway, by starting at the AD role, you're basically going to have someone that is a carry and that is ranged that can deal a decent amount of damage. Now look at this. These are all generic AD carries. Now here's the cool thing. You can start out with Ashe, Tristana, or if you're feeling a little gutsy and pricey, you could go for Graves. Now, Tristana, I'm going to talk about first because she's free. All you have to do is like their Facebook page, and you get a free Tristana skin, which means you get the free character, which means you don't have to spend anything on her, which means she should be one of the first characters that you play. Excuse me. Now, you see, she's very high in attack power, a little bit of defensive capabilities, not much in the ability power tree, Azingian people aside, and a little bit of difficulty to play. However, she's also recommended. She's a ranged carry champion. She has a set of skills that you'll basically be able to figure out will help her out in doing what she needs to do. She has a passive that as she levels up will get a further and further range. Rapid fire is going to make her attack quicker. This is going to be great because you don't have to worry about having any attack speed on your runes or your masteries, really, because your skill will make up for it. Rocket Jump is great because you are going to have basically a spell that lets you get in and out of places. It lets you save yourself, and it also lets you go in on champions that are low. This is going to be a really beneficial skill to have if you feel like you are running maybe that defensive rune page or mastery page because you can run away from people easier. Explosive Shot, one of those skills that's a little problematic for the learning champion. Because not only is it a spell that doesn't do a lot of damage and is more technical with the heal debuff that it gives, but whenever you kill somebody, it deals damage to surrounding enemies. Now this helps with someone who's learning to farm, however, it makes it hard because you naturally push your lane, which means that you're going to be up farther and an enemy jungler is more likely to gank you. Buster Shot is great too because it's the finishing blow, so to speak. It deals a lot of damage, and it also pushes people out of the way. So that means that it's good to use as an offensive and defensive tool, specifically a defensive tool when you're first learning. So Tristana, a little bit more complex. I would get her to start out with because she's free. But the first range carry I would really want to play is Ashe. Now, Ashe, besides looking very pretty in her updated artwork and model and everything, is also a very, very powerful ranged AD champion. The best part about Ashe is she brings about everything a ranged character is supposed to do, and nothing else really. She has a little bit of crowd control on her, which is fantastic for the learning player, but especially awesome for the more experienced summoner. Look at her. Attack power out the wazoo, not a lot of defense or ability power, and technically a little bit harder to play than Tristana because of, like I said, when you're a more advanced summoner, you can use your spells more effectively. But by being an early level summoner, you have a lot of different options. Focus means that when you're not attacking, Ash will naturally gain additional critical strike. This means that when you don't attack for a little while, you're going to be able to deal bonus damage. So you can see the first attack here, 258. 128, 128. So naturally, at the beginning stages of the game, Ash will have the first hit of the game is guaranteed to be a critical strike, which means you can use it effectively to harass enemies or make sure you get that first last hit of the game. Frost Shot is great for learning summoners as well because it lets you learn about toggled abilities. When you have this skill activated, it passively uses it every time you auto attack. When you deactivate it, it doesn't use it at all. Best part about this is it slows people down on your auto attacks. This is great for chasing, and it lets you learn something called kiting, which means as you're running away, you tag someone with Frost Shot so they get slower than you and you can get away to safety. Volley helps out new summoners a lot. Not only is it a skill you can farm minions with because it shoots out multiple arrows, but it automatically applies your Frost Shot, so when you're kiting somebody, you can turn around and volley rather than turning on Frost Shot, hitting them, and walking away, and they will automatically be slowed, and you can continue to run away safely. But I also said volley is used offensively to farm yourself up and get a lot more last hits. Hawkshot is a skill that is fantastic because it lets people who are going to naturally push the lane early on when they're playing League of Legends have vision. You can Hawkshot an area to gain vision of it, and the Hawk will give you vision of everything going up to that area as well. So if you feel you are overextended a little bit, you can Hawkshot into the jungle and see if an enemy jungler is coming to you and run away. The second best part about Hawkshot is, since you're going to be in the bottom lane practicing your last hits, Hawkshot's leveling up will not only increase the range at which you can fire that Hawk, but it will be giving you extra gold for every minion you kill. Meaning that technically, if you're farming less than the other AD carry, you will still be relatively close to the amount of gold they have, and you can still buy your items equally as effective. And then, of course, she has the ultimate Enchanted Crystal Arrow. It smacks people in the face and they get stunned. It's great. The further away you fire it from, the more they're going to get stunned, the longer they're going to get stunned for, which makes it very effective for disengaging or starting fights. So Ash basically has everything that a ranged character is going to want to have when you're first learning League of Legends. So I highly, highly suggest you play Ash as one of your first characters, graduate to Tristana, and by the time you play Tristana, and if you feel like playing Graves after that, you'll have learned all the mechanics you need to have Graves kite effectively, use his quick draw to speed himself up, as well as get out of sticky situations, and then you have Smoke Screen where you can get a lot of different things going on because, well, you can attack people inside of it, and they can't see you while they're inside of it. So Graves, also with this brand new Riot skin, is going to be a very effective range character for you guys to practice with in the bottom lane. When you feel like you have a handle on one or two characters in the bottom lane and you want to try to transition to something else, I highly suggest you go to the mid lane. I suggest you go to the middle lane because you're basically going to want to have to practice your farming still. And there are two mid lane characters that make farming a breeze. The cheapest one and the best one to practice with is Annie. Annie is a solo mid mage caster, obviously. She uses fire, or Frostfire. Depends on what skin you have equipped with her. But her abilities overall are your standard mage. Her passive is also great because every 5 spells, Annie's 5th spell will stun someone. So you can cast 4 spells, and then on spell number 5, doesn't matter if it's Disintegrate, Incinerate, or Summon Tibbers, you are going to stun the people that get hit by it. Like this. See, you have the little thing around you, which means you're going to stun, and then they get the little thing around them because they are stunned. This means that when you cast Disintegrate to target one person, you have a chance of just stunning one person. When you have Incinerate, you could stun everybody in this cone. And when you have Summon Tibbers, well, you could stun everybody that lands in that AoE. So she's not only one of the better champions to farm with or use for ability power, but she also has a little extra utility in team fights. Not to mention Disintegrate here. Whenever you last hit a minion with Disintegrate, you refund your entire mana cost. So that means by having Annie, you know, she's going to have 40 or 50 attack damage at like level 1 because she's not an AD character and you're not running attack damage. But Disintegrate's going to deal like 120 damage at level 1 with all that ability power we talked about. That means you could run around and last hit minions easier with Disintegrate, and because you get all your mana back, you're never spending any mana to farm. It's ridiculous, and that's why I want you guys to practice Annie as your first solo mid champion. The next one I want you to practice is Vigar. Vigar, Vigar, Vagar, Vinigar, doesn't matter what you call him, he's the Vivi clone. And basically all he does is cast spells, and he's great with it. Not only, he's a little bit more difficult for you, ladies and gentlemen, because he is super, super squishy, but he has Baleful Strike. Every single time you kill a unit with Baleful Strike, you are going to gain permanent ability power. This means when you last hit minions, when you last hit champions, you will gain extra ability power, meaning that you're going to want to use this Q almost as much as Annie's. Equilibrium is also great because you're going to have basically a passive Chalice of Harmony. You're going to regenerate mana for each 1% of your mana missing, which means you're going to just walk around in the mid lane as Vigar when you're not casting Q and regenerate most of the mana you use to just last hit your last minion with it. Dark Matter is an AoE damaging spell which will let you learn timing. This means that you can't just walk up to Rise and hit Q on Baleful Strike and hit him. Dark Matter is a little bit more timed with a delay. So this will let you practice things. This will also let you practice setting up crowd control. Look at this giant cage. Any enemy that hits that outside ring is going to get stunned. Anybody inside can still move around, but it's basically the same size as Dark Matter, which means that you can start setting yourself up for combos. You can farm better with Dark Matter. You have Equilibrium, so you have extra mana regeneration. And then Primordial Burst deals a ridiculous amount of ability power damage, and oh yeah, it adds more damage based on how much ability power your enemy has. So Vigar is yet another great champion to learn in that mid lane. Now, as I was talking to my friend Dejan, if you're a little bit more advanced and you just want to learn champions that are going to do well in different matchups, well, then you're going to want to look at Ahri. You're going to want to look at Vladimir. And if you're not up to the 6300 IP, but you want to try someone effective as well, you're going to want to try Morgana. Now, Morgana is a very powerful mid lane champion because she has a resistance to crowd control and a resistance to all enemy spell effects or enemy spell damage. She has a pool that can farm up a large chunk of enemies. She has a skill shot for you guys to practice that will also root people in place. And her passive is going to basically heal her whenever she hits someone with a spell. Oh, and then she has this ultimate that will shoot off and hit everybody and slow them down and then stun them. So Morgana is a great choice to pick up as well. Morgana, Ahri, and Vladimir can also all use the same rune page. By building health per level, magic penetration, ability power per level, and flat ability power, you can use this rune page for 3 different characters. So if you wanted to focus on ability power middle, and you wanted to basically pick up champions after Annie and Vagar, you can buy all 3 of those champions and benefit all of them greatly from the same rune page. The extra health is going to help Vladimir with his passive ability, it's going to help Ahri, who's really squishy, and it's going to help Morgana, who's weak against physical attacks. So all those runes put together will work for those 3 specific champions. If you don't have the runes, you don't have to have them. That just means you're going to play the character more as just straight damage, which is never a bad thing. Oh no, I'm going to hit you for damage? I don't want to do that. No, you always want to do that. Since we're running a little low on time, I'm going to speed through the rest of the champions for you guys. If you're going to play in the top lane role, well, your champions are going to be naturally a little more tanky. They can be naturally a little more fighty and deal a little bit more damage, but they're basically all going to be melee. What I can really suggest for your top lane is a character like Gangplank. Gangplank is a mix of speed, attack damage, and, well, pirate. He basically can just go around and use his spells to last hit minions more effectively with Parlay, and much like Annie, he gets half of his mana cost refunded when he kills something. He also benefits from critical strike on his Parlay, and gains extra gold when last hitting with it, which means that much like Ashe, he's basically going to help you keep your farm up regardless. He has a heal, which will also remove crowd control, a speed buff, and an ability, that's his ultimate, that can be cast globally so you can help out your team no matter what, and it deals a ridiculous amount of damage and slow. So Gangplank is one of those top champions that can benefit from your generic rune page. Another character, he's not really competitive play worthy, but I feel he is basically your solo top AD bruiser in a nutshell, is Garen. He has a spell that will increase his attack damage, silence somebody, and increase his move speed. He gains natural tankiness through his W, which is passive and active. He spins in circles to win, and he's resistant to slow effects while doing so. And then he has a skill, which is basically the Kill Steal spell, which means that when you cast it, it deals more damage based off how much health they're missing. Perseverance is also going to, when he's outside of combat, regenerate your HP passively. This means that if you don't want to engage the enemy because you've taken too much damage, you can just sit back and let yourself heal up more effectively. Other characters you might want to check out in the top lane for attack damage specifics are going to be perhaps Tryndamere. Where'd you go? Because he is all physical damage and very little defense, except for his ultimate, which makes him invulnerable to death. Basically, he goes down to 1 HP and cannot be reduced below 1 HP until his ultimate's over. He is a little weak though and weak to crowd control, but he's just a generic attack damage champion. Other characters that you might want to play in that top lane are going to be Aurelia, someone that Dyrus is currently practicing, because she has sustain, damage, and later on in the team fights, she could run in and out with Blade Surge and activate her ultimate and deal a lot of different damage types. You can also try practicing Riven, who will help you transition to the jungle. Riven is an attack damage character that uses her abilities with her passive. When you have Runic Blade as your passive, in between casting spells, you gain bonus damage, basically. So Broken Wings is a skill you can cast 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And as you can see, even right here, Freak uses the spell, auto attacks. Uses the spell, auto attacks. Uses the spell, auto attacks, because Runic Blade is making her deal additional bonus physical damage. You also have an AoE stun. You also have a shield that helps you move. And you have an ultimate that adds extra damage.
There's no other way.
And then deals more damage based off how much HP they're missing, much like Garen has. And who doesn't love listening to Christina V's voice? Besides that, you can also play in the top lane. You could practice Cho'Gath. Now, Cho'Gath would be basically your first ability power-centric top laner. He's been seeing a little bit more play in the mid lane because he's battlecast, but you can build him as an attack damage, an attack speed, or an ability power champion. And I suggest Cho'Gath as one of the last top laners you try because he transitions very well into the jungle, because by picking up Smite and his ultimate feast, he can counter jungle like a boss. He also has hard crowd control in a stun, which means his ganks are super, super effective. Aside from this, you can also try picking up Nunu. Nunu's seen a little bit more solo top play, but works extremely well as a utility or an ability power-based jungler. This means that Nunu, he can counter jungle effectively with Smite in his Consume to kill neutral monsters and minions a lot quicker. He also has a slow, a thing that can speed up himself or an ally at the same time, increasing their attack and movement speed. Every couple physical attacks, he gets a free spell, and he has a giant AoE which basically screams Empire and slows and deals massive damage depending on how long it's been channeled. Absolute zero indeed. But he is also a very effective counter jungler, and by building him utility, you don't really need to run ability power or anything on him. You could just build Randuin's Omen and Shirelia's and help out your team. He's a great transition into characters that could play support role. I also mentioned Cho'Gath and Riven. Those are 2 characters that can go in the top lane or go into the jungle very effectively and run similar rune pages while doing so. Nunu, as I said, you can build him utility, which will help you transition into support characters. Support characters, I can suggest right off the bat, Soraka is about 450 IP. Buy her. You can buy Janna, who's going to shield and offer a little bit of crowd control. And then once you get up to the higher reaches of IP, buying Sona is going to be a support character that can offer a little bit of poke. You can manage her passive very well, but she also has a sustained heal. All these characters, Sona and Soraka, are sustain supports. Janna does not have a heal, but she does offer a shield, which also adds attack damage, and technically her ultimate will indeed heal as well. So if you want to practice support characters, those are the 3 I highly suggest. We also already touched upon junglers, but very, very quickly, going back to junglers, 2 of the more effective junglers that see a lot of high-level play that you want to check out as soon as you can are going to be Nocturne and Shyvana. And these are 2 characters that are very expensive IP-wise and require a slightly different rune page. You can still run your up top rune page for them to some degree of success, but you'll have to build defensively with cloth armor and 5 health potions. What you're going to want to build with them, though, where is it? You're going to want to build something that runs damage, attack speed, armor penetration, magic resist, and armor. And that is something that more advanced summoners will want to be checking out. So hopefully you guys have learned a little bit about what characters you should be keeping an eye on while you approach level 30, or perhaps you're already there. Hopefully you've also gotten an idea of what rune pages and masteries you guys want to be using so you can help improve your game step by step. I cannot stress hard enough that you're starting at AD and AP to practice last hitting and practice map awareness. These are 2 things that are going to transition into all the rest of the roles, and these are the 2 best places to really practice it because you have abilities that help you last hit, and when you're in the bottom lane with a support character, you're going to have someone to keep you alive while you're trying to check out what's going on the map. And I can't stress enough how much Hawkshot really helps, especially at the lower stages of leveling still. If you're not quite level 30 yet and your support character is not buying wards, or you don't have a real strict support character like that because no one wants to play those at that level, you can keep Hawkshot up and just keep yourself alive like that. So hopefully you guys have once again figured out what you're going to be doing in order to truck on the levels of level 30 Summonerville and keep up that gameplay. Like I said, I want to give a special shout out to my friends Dejan and Sam. Thank you so much for helping me out with this show, as well as all you guys, like I said, on Reddit, who have been messaging GG Chronicle and also messaging myself on Facebook. That's once again, ggchronicle.com, facebook.com/ggchronicle, or at ggchronicle on Twitter. You can also check me out. We have facebook.com/OptimusTomTV, youtube.com/OptimusTomTV, in addition to at Optimus Tom on Twitter. So guys, the show's gone about as long as I can possibly do it for you guys. I don't want to take too much of your time away. You might get bored for this. But hopefully, all you guys, by the way, who have been seeing me on Summoner's Rift playing with my friends and giving me shoutouts, I love you guys. That's awesome. Hopefully next time we meet up, you guys will have learned a little bit from this show, and you guys can kick my ass when you do so. Pending I'm not trolling, because I need it a lot. Well, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thanks for tuning into a very successful episode of In the Zone, where we learn to be a better summoner on the fields of justice. And guys, I'll see you all in Summoner's Rift. You're not in the game yet, Rengar.
All talk, no action.